Hello and welcome to another episode of Growing Up B2B. I'm your host, Ed Delia. I'm the second generation president of Delia Associates. We are the growth advisory and activation firm focused exclusively on family-owned B2B companies. And today, I'm joined by Pedro and Jesse Quiroga of EAFab Corporation. Pedro, along with his wife Claudia, founded EAFab in 2006 and have spent the past 20 years building an engineering and fabrication company serving the global steel industry. Jesse represents the next generation, joining the company after graduating from the University of Pittsburgh and now serving as marketing and human resources manager. What makes their story particularly interesting is that Jesse's path into the family business was anything but predetermined. She initially pursued psychology and neuroscience, later shifted into marketing, explored several different industries, and ultimately discovered that the community and opportunity she was looking for had been much closer to home. We'll talk about entrepreneurship, working across generations, the future of manufacturing in the steel industry, developing young talent, technology, and what it takes to build a family enterprise that continues to evolve. Pedro, Jesse, welcome to Growing Up B2B.
Hello, Ed.
Great to have you today.
Thank you for that introduction.
That's great.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Much better than what I would say. That's great.
So, Pedro, we'll start with you. For any of our listeners who are not familiar with EAFab, can you tell us in your own words what the company is all about and the role it plays in the greater steel industry?
Sure. Again, my name is Pedro Quiroga. You made a fantastic introduction of something that I never thought about it with all that level of detail, So EAFab is basically a company that it comes as the response for what my wife and I would think needed to be done to try to improve the portion of the steel industry that pertains to the electric arc furnace, and what EAFab stands for. Initially, EAFab is supposed to be EAF Fabrications, or Electric Arc Furnace Fabrications, but it became too much of a long name, that it was not going to be conducive to anything. So we were looking for something short, easy to remember. So we ended up EAFab, and then EAFab didn't work out either because it had a double F right there in the middle. Next thing you know, we just named it EAFab. EAFab became catchy, short. And again, the company basically what it does is that we do the electric arc furnace, the portion of the steel industry where we do the recycling part of that thing, where basically we create a furnace that receives anywhere between 100 to 300 tons of metal scrap. Mm-hmm. Cars, rims, wire, whatever. Everything gets then remelted back into molten steel. We basically take away all the things that they were not steel from that scrap, and then that thing goes in a form of a thing called slag. And then the steel then basically becomes molten steel that it can be repurposed into whatever the steel mill sells. Call it a beam, again, wire, bar, or whatever it is. We don't do the melting. We design and create the actual equipment that does the melting for our customers for them to run it at their will, the way that they want to do it, to try to run it as fast as they want it, or as low as they so choose to do so. And basically anything that has to do, once we go ahead and generate what is called a ladle full of molten steel, we hand it over to the next step, which is the caster side. We said, okay, here it is, your molten steel. And at that moment, we thank you.
We
turn around and we go back to do more melting or to generate technologies in that particular section of the business.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, I've certainly heard of the concept of slag, but never before had I really known or thought to explore, okay, where does that come from? What's the backstory there? And that's where companies like EAFab are making that actually happen.
And many people don't realize that the slag is one of the major components for the roads, for the asphalt.
Yes.
So basically, all that thing that every time that we are on the road, and that we are that you're in your car, you are basically being part of the steel industry. I mean, people don't realize this thing, but many of the roads that built this great country are basically made with the repurposing of everything that it was not steel.
Yeah.
And that thing, and it's right there on the road.
That's fascinating. So 20 years ago, you and Claudia started this business. What did you see in the market at the time that convinced you that there's there's a niche we can play here. There's an opportunity here. What were you seeing at the time that said, hey, we can do this. We can fill this role?
Well, we initially started in our first 10 years in the industry. We were actually part of a bigger consortium that it was an OEM for this type of a product.
Okay.
And the reason why our company started is because of our I'm not exactly sure how to say this properly without cursing. I was just pissed. I was just angry. I mean, I was trying to push for better ways. I was convinced that some of the things that we were doing and the passion in the way that we were doing it at the speed that I thought that we needed to do it, were just not up to par to what our customers and what many of our things were, what the industry was requiring. That also led us to some of our managers, not to be pleased with me, about it. And in that particular fashion, they told us, whenever you have do your own business, you do whatever the hell you want. And I said,
he said, good idea.
I said, you know what?
Okay.
That was about exactly what I needed to do. The main reason why EAFab exists today is because we are just trying to make a difference in the terms as we think it needs to be done, at the speed that we think that it needs to be done, and in a certain specific fashion with certain forms with our customers. Good or bad, after now 20 years of being here, I realized that not everything can be black and white like I thought. Back 20 years before, I thought that I was very firm, very energetic, very like that. And now I realize that there is a bunch of different grays. Yet I still think that it was the right thing to do. Most people that they have to start their own businesses because they think that they can do better. They can do it in their fashion and at a different pace. And that's I think that the way that not only ours in our particular business, but everybody, a guy who's putting a bakery or a guy who is making pencils, I'm pretty sure that everybody starts because they know and they are convinced that there is a better way of doing it. And that's how it starts.
And then there's the starting, and then there's the next generation. And Jesse. So let's turn it to you, Jesse. You certainly, based on talking with you before this program, this was not a foregone conclusion that, hey, I'm going to be part of EAFab, and nothing of a linear journey for you. So you explored a few different routes before ultimately deciding to come and to join EAFab. So talk about that for a moment. What ultimately led to that conclusion that, hey, this is the place for me. EAFab is the place for my journey. Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that from a very young age, I always saw both my parents being such hard workers. So I knew that whenever I had my summers off in college, I really wanted to use that to see as much of my industries as possible. Like you mentioned, I actually started out in developmental psychology and neuroscience. I quickly realized that although I loved studying that, in a career sense, whenever I was shadowing people doing whatever I thought I really wanted to do, I was like, okay, so I definitely don't want to do that. I need to switch gears. And then lucky for me, it kind of hit the right time. COVID came, and it was a time where everything was switching digital, obviously. And my family asked me if I could help them create a website and kind of get them more of like a digital social media presence, just because I'm younger and I understood it. I realized that that was something that not only I liked, but that I was pretty good at. So I made that switch into the business school. That's when I entered marketing. And then I actually did a few different jobs. So I was working freelance. I actually was doing work for a federal contractor. I was also working for a Italian race car driver, doing his social media. So I really have done kind of all around. And then I moved to Spain for a summer. I was living in Madrid. I worked in the fashion industry, and just I really tried, I would say, a lot of different avenues, but I realized what was really important to me was kind of the community and the team that I had and the support. It was much less about the actual marketing application. Every single company needs marketing. You know that very well, obviously. And I think that over all of my different experiences, where I felt most valued and where I felt like I was learning the most by far was EAFab, regardless of it being my company or not.
That's quite a path.
Yeah.
Race car driver, Spain.
A lot of whoops and turns, a little roller coaster action there. But yeah.
So talk about a little bit of the start of that journey with the EAFab. So there was that day where you kind of went from being Pedro and Claudia's daughter to being
Yeah.
a member of the EAFab team. What was that like when you kind of walked in for the first time saying, all right, now I'm part of this organization? How did that feel? And talk about that moment.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you can totally relate to this, but from a young age, I think that you think you're pretty integrated into it, regardless if you're a full-time employee or not. I did a bunch of quote unquote internships when I was literally like 13, did all those things. But once I finally was hired on full time and I was in it, I think what was most surprising to me was how much I really didn't know. We we joke around sometimes that my first words were sidewall panel, which is like a part of the EAF. But once I got here, I realized, like, for example, with the sidewall panel, I didn't know the mechanics of it, I didn't know the chemistry of it, and more than anything, I didn't know what it actually did. And especially in marketing, although you don't need the whole full technical engineering background, of course, I need to know what I'm talking about to be able to promote that. So the steel industry is something that's ever changing. Steel isn't going anywhere. It's in our bridges, it's in our building, it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And it continues evolving. So I think every single day in this industry, you learn a new thing. And if you're not learning a new thing, then you're not going about it correctly. So
Yeah.
I think that was best for me was kind of opening my eyes to all of that technical knowledge and then being able to apply, the more creative side of that to that.
So you did have a little bit of backgrounder of the company before you actually walked through those doors. Like you had a little bit of experience.
In theory. Now I know
Okay.
I didn't, but at the
Okay.
time I thought I did.
And there were things that you knew, and then there was a gap in that education that needed to be filled in. Okay, I get it.
Large gap, yeah.
So let me ask you the other side of that, Pedro. What was it like for you when Jesse made the decision? Say, yeah, okay, I'd like to be part of this company. What was that like for you? Like, talk about that for a moment.
Well, very. It is always many people think that this is an easy decision, particularly when you're trying to build something to leave a legacy, particularly with your children, The reality is that it couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is that there is two major things that I understand where Jess is coming from on this thing, but the reality is that no, she did not start it from scratch. I mean, from absolutely from scratch. I mean, she had 20 years of seeing us doing the technical side, understanding many things. I don't think that she was conscious enough about all the things that she's been exposed to, and we as parents visualize that at one point or another, at least one of our children will be joining this particular effort in one shape or form. Thinking that it was not going to happen, it will be crazy. I mean, there's a reason why children, they follow in many occasions for many years the step of their parents, because there is an indirect exposure that gives the kids, that preference towards one or another side. That's why kids, I mean, doctors have doctor kids, I mean, engineers have engineer kids, marketers have the same thing. My father was a marketing guy. So therefore, I mean, as much as I am an engineer, I did the marketing at the very beginning of this company, and then I had to give it up after I saw my father work with her, me working with her on the marketing side, and then realizing that all these ideas that they were coming up also come with the incredible responsibility from her or from that kid, that the idea that they don't need to know all the technicalities, that couldn't be further. I mean, the reason why Jessica has been able to do as good as she is because she now understands all the technicalities, or not every single technicality, but many of the technicalities that involve, that make become part of our customer, part of our product, that will connect with a customer. Yeah. So in the moment that she was able to do this thing, every single idea that she has been able to have is not an idea that is coming out of the blue. I have had kids right here that come here with ideas and stuff like that, and you can immediately see that those ideas are not going to be able to succeed because they lack this connection, Yeah. In the moment that anybody doing any kind of marketing for example, my father used to work for the equivalent in Mexico from Lay's, what do you call the
Lay's chips, yeah.
chips, you know,
Yeah, potato chips.
and my father became an expert on how to make Fritos. And he was a marketer, you know, and he was able, and he will bring it to our home. You know, he will tell us, I mean, he will ask us about a thing. We were those focus groups from him and stuff like that to see what I like it, what will we put in it and stuff like that. So he knew exactly what to do, how to bring it up to the market, and he was very successful about doing so, you know. That is the kind of stuff that I believe that any person that is going to be into the marketing field are going to be required to do, even if they don't want to. Yeah. Jessica, specifically when she joined, we make her immediately the head of marketing, while it was clear enough that most people would have never put her in charge. But we put her in charge because one is that we knew that she wasn't, I mean, nobody in their right mind would have put her in charge from a girl that just graduated from college.
Yeah.
But nobody knew my daughter the way we do, you know, and because of that, we knew what she could do. We knew what she was able to do, and we knew what we were going to have to demand from her for her to jump into the next step, which is going to be something that I think that you're going to about to ask us in a little bit. Of course, I'm going to hold my answer to that because the challenges, that's where the challenging come in. Bringing her in to get like that, it gives any parents a moment of pride. It gives a parent a moment of knowing that there is a chance for legacy. Mm-hmm. And that right there is just enough. I mean, sometimes even a bigger driver than what it's supposed to be. And that's many times where some entrepreneurs, they miss the mark because they're trying to make their child what they thought they needed to be, instead of actually visualizing what their children can do and what they cannot. That is maybe the biggest challenge. At this moment, I would expect it for Jessica to be an engineer. I could have tried to push it. I kept it like that. And I knew that she would have been the reason why a company eventually folds.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to hear, Pedro, about the exposure of your father and the path he took and the path you took being different paths. And, you know, it sounds like that somewhat gave you the bandwidth to give Jessica, you know, as she came into the business, kind of the space to find her own place in the business, but also to fill a needed role. And then certainly very common to multi-generations, you know, holding her to a very high standard, as is quite typical.
But that's the thing, nobody knows this better. So the problem is that the next step is that most of the employees, they will have the human nature to believe, and I think they're right also, to believe that it is an underserved position. It's an underserved thing. And that brings an incredible responsibility to the children joining the company, to them to realize that they cannot afford to be taking certain peculiarities or allowances, you know, that because they are the children. I mean, because the fact that they are many people don't understand that the fact that they are the children from the owners, that's not an advantage. That's an actual disadvantage. People will think, oh my God, well, you can do that because of who you are, you know? And the reality is that many kids confuse that. They don't do the work. And that's why, again, they are not successful about doing so. It is only when they realize the responsibility that position comes, or that they didn't ask for it, but unfortunately came with it, you know? Yeah. And they absolutely need to understand that there is certain things that they cannot afford to do, not because they can't, but just because they should not. So they could understand, they could go ahead and create a level, a good level floor where everybody can interact together. They can continue to work as a co-worker, you know. And that's again, we did have a couple of instances where parent experience in that particular area, it created certain things that it was a learning curve, like any employee will have. Every employee has to go through a learning curve, and that does not exempt anybody from having it, you know, particularly the children of the owner.
Of course. So Jessica, turning to you and thinking about as the rising generation, what's a would you say is as a leadership trait that, thinking about your generation and the world we're in now,
Yeah.
the age of AI or however you wish to frame it, there's a lot of turbulence in our world. There's a lot of uncertainty. Companies are forced to be very agile, more
Mhm.
so than maybe they were in years or generations past. So when you think about all that, what's the leadership trait that you think is really important for yourself and your peers to possess in this age we're living in now?
Yeah, so this is something that I thought quite a bit about. I think for me personally, what was the most important trait that led me to leadership, true leadership, was curiosity. So I think he spoke quite a bit about how there is obviously a learning curve for any employee,
Hmm.
let alone the child of the owner, because obviously there's a little bit more to prove there, especially when you're being put into a management position.
Hmm.
More than I wanted to prove myself and prove to the team that I was worthy and prove to others that I was worthy, I wanted to genuinely understand and feel capable. It would came from a more internal want to make sure that I was capable of this position, and
Hmm.
that others wouldn't be able to see me in that way because I was able to supplement them in the way that my position required. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think for me, curiosity, which in that aspect was a lot more on the technical side because like he
Hmm.
mentioned, we as he explained, we work in a pretty niche type
Yeah.
of product, so it is very important for me to understand all of the implications and more than anything what the customers are looking for. I knew a really quick example is that they told us like safety, 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 that is really important to our customers. So then I did this whole campaign about how we personally as a company are safe, when what they really meant was that our products will make their team safer. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so just right over my head, right? But that being said, for my generation as a whole, I think what's more important for leadership quality is courage. Especially with a family business, I think there's obviously a much larger base level of trust with management. That being said, I did have to kind of speak up for things that I'm like, hey, if I'm thinking about it, like people my age, what things that we grew up with, like we would totally see it in this way, or we might
Hmm.
interpret it this way, or the way that we can do more organizational programs to kind of benefit the whole company. My generation is going to look for these things, whereas your generation is going to look for these things.
Hmm.
So I think courage is something that I really had to learn. And once I was able to kind of build that confidence within the company, not just with obviously my parents, I was able to display that type of confidence to our customers and give a lot of trade show type activities and things like that nature. And I was also really able to build the confidence there. But I did have I did need the courage to not only put myself out there, ask the questions that maybe sound like a stupid question, ask the hard questions, and speak up for what I was thinking, even whenever I felt like I was in a room full of senior people that probably didn't want to hear what I want to say.
And I love where you started, the idea of curiosity, because I
Yeah,
think you're dead on. We are in an age with the advent of AI where it's not so much how much you know, it's how good of a question you can ask that really dictates how much you know.
that's fair. Yeah.
And I sure as heck wish I had AI, when I was in my early 20s, because I'd be at a business function and, the closest person to me in age was probably like, 20 years older. And I'm like,
Oh,
what do you do? And they
hello.
rattle off something and I'm like, I have no idea what they just said. And I'm going to try to be cool and not ask.
I can relate to that way more than you know.
But eventually you find the courage to say, all right, I'm going to ask. All right, I don't know what you just said. Can you just explain it to me in simple
Yeah.
terms? And the nicer executives would, and some would be a little bit, I get out of here, kid, but some would say, oh, okay, yeah, here's what I do. And then,
Yeah.
and those are the ones that become, mentors and were great. So, very much you're both sitting in the present here, Jess representing something of the future, Pedro understanding the past where you came from, but still in the present and still, with some years where the two of you will be running concurrently in this organization. But do you ever find that the two of you, because of the generational difference, come at things differently? Has that ever shown up? Yeah. Talk about that for a minute.
The
Yeah.
problem is to find things that where we think alike. I mean, I think that is the other way around. I mean, it's not that we're thinking. I mean, if we happen to cross around something that we think differently, no, it is trying to find the things in which we actually see it the same way. There is a distinctive generational change that it cannot be, that it cannot be overlooked. And I think it's healthy because it's the same generational change that I had when I came to the industry. The one that I had, when I was in my 30s, the one that I had when I was in my 40s. Today, right now, I'm midway in my 50s. And but that is something that needs to happen. I think that the legacy and the fact that a company can withstand the test of time is precisely by having those generational differences, that allows us to not forget where you're coming from and not forget where we're going, because the only way for you to make sure that the person doesn't start moving left and right is by understanding where is north and where is south.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I can, if I can comment on that, I also just wanted to mention that I think that the industry has a pretty bad reputation of being, old, traditional, and have this big, like, we've always done it this way kind of mentality. But something that I can really speak for is that this company has never had a we've always done it this way type of mentality. All the ideas are very welcomed. They're encouraged to be executed. And I think that's where real learning comes from. I had a lot of really, really bad ideas, but something that I knew is that I could always say that idea and that I would be given the resources to try that idea if it made sense, right? And then I could also fail miserably and be like, okay, never going to do that again. But I think that also is the type of things that I was talking about whenever I was picking my industry and my jobs, like, that was something I truly only found within this industry.
Got it. So on those very rare occasions where the two of you don't see eye to eye, how do those get resolved? So what happens if you have an idea, Jess, and Pedro, you're not feeling it, you're not on the same page?
I win.
How do you work through those together? How do you have those conversations?
There is one very, very, very simplistic way to explain this thing, which is I have never given false compliment to Jessica in any way, shape, or form ever. Not when she was in gymnastics, not when she was in dancing, and when I give the compliment, it is because it is a deserve and earn. Okay, that also has to move into them, because this is what I do with a regular employee. The fact that I'm listening to your idea, first of all, does not change the fact that the final word is mine. And I hate to sound like, oh, here comes the old man, saying like, no. At the end of the day, there is a reason why we are here, and there's a reason why the last word is mine. Because if an employee, another employee, whoever that is, comes to us with an idea that we think is stupid, because there is stupid ideas. Okay. At that moment, the final decision is mine. Just like whenever it's your turn to be a manager, somebody comes to you with a stupid idea, the final decision is yours. Now, when that idea, just the same way that I'm explaining this part, which is, the part that the younger generation normally has a tendency to struggle with, I also need to make sure that I couple this with the understanding that because you're coming with an idea, you need to come with an idea that is prepared, and that comes with a certain kind of a background, logic, execution, and a plan. And if it doesn't have any one of those ones, that's why your idea is stupid, because that means that it doesn't have a plan, or it can be executed, or it's too expensive, or it's just basically completely stupid, completely wrong. We're not going to be able to send somebody to the moon by just go ahead and lighting matches right here in the thing. We need to have something better, So things like that does happen, and they have to have the same. But the problem is that, particularly, and this is the part where now my generation fails, because I said so doesn't work anymore. It didn't work before. It doesn't work today. It won't work in the future, particularly in the future. At this moment, whenever somebody shows up with an idea that has all those elements, that has the diligence, has the thought, has a logic, then it goes the other way around. We have the responsibility to recognize it and adopt it. And that's the part that many on my generation fail, because that is the problem with that thing. Just to give you a quick example. My engineers, I put right here my drawings and like that, and I put the initial template, and we were going to go ahead and use that as a nice drawings. And I picked Helvetica as my font because it was nice. I wanted to have big things because I was getting blind and I couldn't read, and I wanted to have big dimensions in our drawings, in our engineering drawings. So 15 years later or 18 years later, there comes one kid and comes back and says, I would like to change your template. Everybody put a bet on the outside saying, Pedro will never take that. And I said, okay, explain. Why do you want to change the template? Oh, because she gave me a completely different thing. And one of those things that included the change of the template, some of them he was right. Other ones he was completely wrong. And I said, absolutely not. But the most difficult thing, and everybody thought that it was a given, he wanted to change the font to a thing called Trebuchet.
Okay.
And I was like, what the hell is Trebuchet? What kind of a font is that? How much of a non-engineering font name is Trebuchet? And I realized that it was a nicer font. It just happened to be called Trebuchet.
Yeah.
When I asked everybody, does everybody realizing that my team has an average age between 25 and 27.
Yeah.
And everybody said, Pedro, we like that font much better, stuff like that. Against all my principles, I said, perfect, okay, change it. And I had to make that decision because right now it means precisely that is now my responsibility. I demanded diligence, I demanded logic, I demanded explanation. I got it. And at that moment, I know that something in my mind is telling me, scrap it. It's not worth it like that. You like Helvetica, it's your company. You can do it earlier. You don't have to pay attention to it. This is just a kid. And the responsibility is the other way.
Yeah.
That is the reason why companies keep going. Because in the moment that you think that you have all the answers, then you have only those answers. And that's where everything goes. Just like that one, I can tell you many different things that it has happened and that it has put a challenge between her like that. The good ideas and the stupid ones.
But if I can comment on like specifically us two. So I think I don't know if you can tell by speaking with us, but our communication is pretty open and honest and more than anything direct. So lucky for me, the reason that the culture is like that at this company is because it's genetic to us, so I already kind of had like the prereq set up for me, but lucky that for me is that every time that there is something that I think could be an improvement, like he said, it has to be a full-fledged plan, has to be diligent, it has to make sense. But I know that I can have the confidence to come in here and be very, very open, direct, and that we could sit here and have a conversation as long as it needs to be, but that everything is going to be touched upon and that our communication styles will be able to mesh and be strong enough to at least understand one another, even if maybe the outcome decides to be something else,
That's amazing. I mean, the theme that's coming to my mind as the two of you are talking is higher standard. So it's very clear, Pedro, you hold yourself to a higher standard. That's why you started the company. You hold your personnel to a higher standard. They in turn hold you to a high standard when they do come forward with ideas. Right. And then you yourself and then the next generation, Jessie, held to a higher standard, and now watching her hold herself to a very high standard and how she carries herself for the organization. So I think that's an important theme there.
Without a doubt. I mean, I always tell people that only stupid people have bad meetings. It is just absolutely crazy that the only thing that you have to do to a meeting is to show up. Now when you show up without being prepared, without being many people they tell me many times as to how my success rate happens to be sometimes when I go to try to convey a message, to try to convince a customer from doing X, Y, and Z, and I said, well, it's just that it's not me just showing up, it's showing up prepared for what you did. And so I just find it fascinating that people show up to meetings without being prepared, without being done doing the diligence, and then when the customer start asking certain questions, which God forgive, somebody understands that they are entitled to make questions, and there are some of those questions, they are like right there, they're gonna ask you, and you show up without it, then you're stupid. You're having a bad meeting. If you have a bad meeting, you're stupid. You did not show up prepared. You do not have this thing. And the problem is that whenever you show up, turns out that we are the anomaly. Sometimes it's the anomaly. So whenever you show up over here and you come and you cross right here through the door of my office, everybody knows that the most basic question I'm going to ask is why?
Yeah.
How or how? How did you came up with that? And if you did not, and the typical, I don't know, because I like that. Okay, turn around and leave. Come back when you know.
We
You're
have a
stupid.
strict no, I don't know policy.
Well, that's the thing. There is a reason why I don't know. I mean, there is a reason why you may not know because you haven't practiced. Now, if you came over here thinking that you already have it solved and you did not think about this thing, be prepared to be asked to say, okay, thank you, meeting adjourned, turn around, grab your stuff, and go over there and come back when you're ready.
Yeah.
Because you are not ready. This was a bad meeting. This day, today, you're stupid. Move on. You know? I mean, and again, I don't mean that in a bad thing. I mean, the important thing is that successful businesses have to have and need to have that standard. Because right now, when I was showing up prepared and my bosses were not prepared, you know, and I wanted to talk about it, and they had no idea what the hell I was talking about. That is when they were starting to feel like threatened. I said, I don't want your job. In order to do your job, you have to miss a bunch of stuff that I don't miss, you know? And that's when, I mean, again, I think it is the right thing that we created the EAFab, you know? So that manager, you know, that we have, and I have their name, and I will hold his name for me in my mind. He is the reason why EAFab exists today. And I thank him. Because he was right. Absolutely right.
That definitely, so much of that resonates here because we have rules of the road. And one of them is excellent meeting preparation leads to excellent meetings.
Yep.
So if you want to have an excellent meeting, you better have excellent meeting preparation. And if you don't, you're not going to have an excellent meeting. And those are important. So it definitely resonates. So clearly, Pedro, you're embracing Jessica as the next generation, open to her ideas as they evolve, as she evolves. However, there's probably some what I'll call non-negotiables around the vision and the core of the business. So, you know, after, you know, at the 20-year mark now, what would you say is a non-negotiable that this has to remain in place at EAFab, irrespective of who takes command or what generation is in charge?
It's difficult to have it for one non-negotiable. There is actually two non-negotiables.
Okay, that's fine.
The number one non-negotiable is the mission statement of the company, and the number two is the values of this company. Okay, and I know that I'm going to go ahead and extend myself with this thing because right now, the concept-wise, those are the two. Those are all general concepts that don't have a specific thing that is negotiable or non-negotiable. So one is the mission statement of the company says that we are here to provide real solutions in order to help a customer reach the real potential of their operation. That means not every customer wants to become good. Not every customer wants to be the best. We need to understand that and bring solutions, real solutions. And that is the part. Now, whatever solution that is, my idea, her idea, one of my engineers' idea, doesn't matter. Because it's not tied to a specific concept that it cannot be negotiated. Anything can be negotiated. The one thing that cannot be negotiated is that needs to be a solution. If it is not a solution, it's for you to stay the same, then that is not a solution. And that is the part that Jessica understands perfectly. Everybody in the company understands perfectly, you know? And the second one is the number of values that we have in our in our company. And in that case, we have 8 values, which I will go very quickly through that because I only need to really pay attention to 4 of those 8 values. The first 3 and the last one. The first 3 are, and in that order, honesty, diligence, honesty, integrity, and diligence. Those 3 in that order. And in the last one, number 8 is profitability. Now we do have some purgatory, I call them purgatory values, right at the very, 4 of them that are right in the bottom per se, that they are important. They are values of the company. That is mutual respect, social responsibility, awareness, and innovation. But sometimes those changes in priorities depending on the situation, you know. But the one thing that I can tell you right now is that we are in this company to make money. We have to have profitability as one of the values, but it cannot be, and that's the non-negotiable, because we compromise honesty, integrity, or the diligence.
Yeah.
Now, neither all the other four, because that's the reason why number 8 is profitability. It is a value. We are here to make money. We have to be making money. Then if not, it becomes a hobby.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this is a non-negotiable. You make real solutions, whatever that idea comes from. If the idea from Jessica makes a better solution than mine, my responsibility is to follow her, because it's a real solution. Unless it compromises honesty, integrity, or diligence, or mutual respect, or social responsibility, or innovation, or awareness, or it doesn't make any money. If it doesn't make any money, it still can go through, and that is the thing. Again, I know that it's a little bit more than just one or just two, but the non-negotiable says what makes this company important, the mission statement and their values.
And you know what they say, Jesse, with one way to tell if the values of an organization are real is if a top executive can cite them unprompted without notes. And I think we just saw that happen.
I said, I can tell you this. I think you could ask anybody in this company, what are the core values and mission statement?
And they would know. That's awesome.
Really drill that into everybody. We have them painted up on a huge wall that everyone passes by every day, both our mission statement and our core values. So that is something that we have a lot of pride in, and everything that he says, I can completely echo that. And he knows that that is something that will continue to grow with the company, regardless of what the next steps are.
That's excellent.
It is actually instilled into the yearly reviews. The yearly reviews. We have to go ahead and let
we do that too. Yeah.
Because that's the thing. If you do not promote them, again, I'm going to go enter into the marketing part. If you don't market the value, and if you do not market the mission statement, what gives you the impression that people will learn them?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why would you expect people to know how important this is if you do not give them that proper thing? And it needs to be something that I always tell the people, any given situation, regardless of what it is, call it ethical, non-ethical, call it a question of the code like that. The question is, how would Pedro respond? Just think about it. From all these different things, what will Pedro say? And if you know the mission statement and you know the 8 core values and the order they follow, you know exactly what I'm going to say. And I always tell people, just go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
Say it like I will say it, because that's what you're here for. Do not have to think about, that's exactly what I would say. It needs to start with honesty, it needs to start with integrity, because sometimes it's better just to stay quiet and say no.
We're not good at.
And you're like, we're gonna go ahead and like that. No. That's integrity. Sometimes, I don't have to be dishonest. I just need to go like that. No. That's where the integrity comes to.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. If you know that this is wrong like that, you need to jump in and you need to say so, and like that thing. And obviously, that integrity, that diligence needs to come with it. So that's the part that I will answer. What will Pedro say on this day? And funny enough, then I'm not that much needed. Then the legacy is right there. Then the next generation, Jessica, whoever is going to be right here, the employees that she will lead, if she decides to go ahead and lead, that is going to be, because those are concepts that are non-negotiable. That's it is what it is. That makes the culture. That makes you just go ahead and scratch it right here. That it smells exactly like.
I love it. So I want to touch on something you started referencing, Jessica, about this idea of the greater steel industry being, having a connotation for being traditional, maybe somewhat stuck in its ways. Yet here you are representing the next generation, the new generation. And what do you think, what do you run into? What do you think people outside the industry just misunderstand about what it's like to take the path you're taking to endeavor into a career in steel and manufacturing as it looks like today? What do you think is going on there that people there's misconceptions or misunderstandings about what the world actually looks like today?
So I think the biggest misconception is that it's an old traditional industry. I would say that I joined the Students to Steel program when I was a junior in college. Like I said, I always was kind of a little bit involved with everything. And even that jump, I think it's been 5 or 6 years since then. The drastic technology improvements are unreal. You know, it is consistently evolving. More than anything, I would say that the steel industry is very environmentally conscious. More than anything, it is environmentally conscious and it is extremely safe. Those are the most important things to everybody, no matter what steel company you are across the entire globe. And it is very technology forward. You know, I would say that the very few things that people know, like some of my friends per se, they don't know anything about steel, but they know that we run a really techie company, which is interesting because they can say those things separately, but whenever they talk about steel, they think about like, oh yeah, like the old steel mills, especially because we're in Pittsburgh. You know, Pittsburgh was once one of the most polluted cities because of the way they used to run the steel industry. But
Yes.
it's those type of mistakes that the entire industry is taking responsibility as of a long time ago and completely resetting. And I think you talked about it earlier, like you would walk into rooms and you were the youngest one by 20 years old. I went through that, I mean, vividly. I would go to these students of SEAL programs. No one told me that these were PhD students getting their PhD in thermodynamics. And I stood up, I'm like, I'm a sophomore in marketing. You know, I was like, what am I doing here? Right now, I find so many people my age. The steel industry runs so many young professionals programs. I help run them. Student outreach is very important to me. But I would say that the median age in the industry is dropping drastically, in that it really is a young, up and coming, technology forward industry. And those are things I think people not only don't see, but completely misconstrue.
Understood. And something you started to touch on, and this is an initiative in EAFab. Before we got on this episode, I think one of you cited that you've now worked with over 500 students through an outreach
Yes.
program, and actually have implemented some of the ideas generated by some of those students.
Every year.
So talk
Yeah.
about that from maybe to both of you. Why is that so important? Developing that next generation, the next generation, really, of young engineers and manufacturing talent. Why has that become an important mission for EAFab?
Yeah, so kind of like what I just said, the industry will continue to evolve, and we need young minds, fresh perspectives to do that. And I think every single industry can speak for that, but especially for something that has been established for so many years, it is very easy to kind of fall into that path. And I was very passionate about specifically is that the steel industry does not just need engineers; it needs entire ecosystems. More than most cases, steel mills are being built quite literally in the middle of nowhere. And so they need an entire administration team, they need security, they need everything. And one thing that I was pretty upset about is that I went to the University of Pittsburgh and I never had one single person in the steel industry ever come or step foot into our buildings. And they are at the engineering buildings every day. And I was like, do you understand how much more there is in this industry? So much more that they can be doing, different departments, you know? So I personally became very passionate about switching up that narrative and not just targeting technical children and students that were already enrolled in material science engineering. Well, yeah, I think they're pretty interested if that's what they've been studying for the past 4 years. You know, we need to go younger. And my father started this initiative over 10 years ago, where we go and work with local high schools on like a semester long period. And it's basically a full consulting course. So we give them an issue that we're being tasked with at work, and they're able to work through that for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, they give us a solution. And we have implemented at least one solution every single year since the start of that program. We've worked with about 9 different high schools in the area, both trade schools and traditional high schools. And yeah, whether it's in the trades or whether it's in STEM or whether it's in administration or whether it's in creative, truly, literally, there is a place for everybody in the steel industry. And we just want to make sure that they're given that message from a much younger age.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I hope you're able to continue those endeavors long into the future.
Thank you.
So
I would like to say something very quickly regarding that thing. It was about 13, 14 years ago when we started, and the interesting thing about it is that one of the biggest issues that we saw is that we had a lot of engineers in our industry, and they absolutely hate what they do.
Really?
And And yeah, absolutely. I mean, terrible engineers. I mean, absolutely horrible people. I mean, they have no idea what you're doing. They don't want to do it. They don't know it, and because they chose the wrong college to go. They chose the wrong thing to do. So the initial idea when we started to do this thing is just to try to look for an aim directly at junior and seniors in high school in order for them to give them a small taste of what it is, not just to go and ask them or to give them a speech, I mean, just in one class, is to give them a chance to actually have to do something. Initially, just as a STEM, and that's how it started in STEM, the STEM environment, and then later evolved into the STEAM, to include administration, arts, and all that stuff. But the important thing is that we gave them an opportunity for them to test drive what they thought in high school, what they thought they want to do. And in that way, give them an opportunity for them to actually apply. Because for us, it was very difficult. For my wife and I, it was very difficult to understand the main differences when you're trying to choose colleges. As you're trying to choose college in Mexico, you just go over there, apply, and you're accepted if you have money, period. That's it. There's no more trying to send this application. And all that is bullcrap from here. In Mexico, if you want to study, you go and study, and you apply for the program you want to study.
Yeah.
Here, you have to be applying. You're applying to certain universities to see if they will pick you. So, for example, my son was a mechanical engineer, and he immediately wanted to go, and he only applied for schools that they offer a mechanical engineering, a very strong mechanical engineering program. Rose-Hulman, Purdue, Pitt, Penn State, all kinds of everything, Georgia Tech, like that. He chose Pitt.
We're a big family.
and Jessie, on the other hand, she was a completely different parent, and she was looking for what now I understood that it was liberal arts universities. And I said, like, what in the world is a liberal art university? What is this difference? That I just couldn't understand it. University to university, until I understood that this concept, this ridiculous concept of the thing. And I realized that many of these engineers, they went to these schools that they were technically inclined, just to realize later on that they didn't like what they do. And that's the reason why they are terrible at what they do, So in that moment, I said, no, we need to give these kids an opportunity. If we can change the mind of one kid, either for them to confirm that that they think it is good enough for them to at least apply to it, then we're doing our job. But even better, if we can put into the table of a kid the realization that what they thought it was great sucks, then at that moment, that kid is going to be now looking to a complete other number of options that they will not be able to realize it until they are already there.
Yeah.
And that is the main purpose of what it is called, what it was first the STEM program. Today it's called the student outreach committee, that we have with a bunch of different people right here. And also struggling with the fact that no, we cannot make it easy. We need to make it challenging. So we, at the end of these 3 months that we work with them, during the final presentations, we need to smell the sweat. We need to smell that stress, that thing, because that means that they're coming back, and that kid is going to come back saying, yep, engineering is what I want to do. Or the hell with this, And that is just as valid, particularly at high school. And that's why we're aiming towards that particular group, junior, senior, and in high school. And every time that we find them, we look for it. And there is a secondary thing, which is the promotion of women in the industry, which is another sub group or sub objective that we have, trying to make sure that whenever we find girls, that they are hesitant about going into what it is considered to be a male dominant environment, we try to go ahead and just give them the opportunity to see my head of engineering is a female, Jessie, my wife Claudia, and give them that opportunity for them to see how they can, without losing an identity, they actually have the ability to go over there and succeed in an industry that by tradition may not be one that women will pick, at least not in my terms.
Would you say that that you see that, Jesse, the face of the industry starting to shift in the generation coming up? You see more women.
Absolutely. Just like I touched upon that we have young professionals programs, we also have a very, very in-depth women in steel program in the industry. And I think what's difficult for me per se is that I have been very lucky to not be able to relate to the type of discrimination that a lot of women do face. We work at a very young, average age Gen Z and 50-50 woman-men company. You know, a lot of the steel industry isn't that way. But what is important is that it has been over 10 years of very distinct established programs to make sure that women are getting the leadership opportunities that they deserve, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes.
And the way that your dad framed liberal arts, spoken like a true engineer. I remember when I told a close colleague of my dad's who was an engineer,
Yeah.
that he was going for a liberal arts education. He goes, "Oh, you mean liberal arts and crafts?" I'm like, yeah, something like that.
I went from liberal arts, which is liberal arts and science, whatever, that to business school. So I had a bad rap. That's on me.
But don't get me wrong. I mean, today that I see, for example, when we tour Emory, you know, down in Atlanta, when we saw some of it, I mean, the liberal arts. Now that I understand the what they bring to the table, how they bring it to the table, I think it's a fantastic system. You know, now I understand what they are. It is foreign to me, you know. But the fact that I realize, okay, wait a minute, there is a place that they actually give chances to these kids for them to try different things, particularly in the first 2 years, and then they go ahead until they find that one area where they might want to choose. But you don't have to be, completely decided. Like my son was, since before he went to college, he knew he wanted to be a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
So there is going to be kids that they are that convinced of what they want to do, call it communications, call it the visual arts, call it everything. They were an artist before, they will be an artist in the future, and you know immediately, or an engineer in the past and an engineer in the future. But there is other kids that they still have to find that way, you know. And I think that liberal arts group of universities fill that void, and I think it's fantastic. You know, I mean, and I think it's super important.
Well, thank you. I have hope for us now, Jesse, for you and me both, right? That we're going to make it.
We're in it together. I think we'll do well. I don't know.
But believe it or not, one of the biggest, people that I speak, that every time that I speak, in conferences like that, my message is not to the young kids. My message many times is to the people of my generation, because we need to recognize that, and at the end of the day, this dumb idea that the new generations are not going to be able to make it or whatever. That's absolutely crazy. And we were at one point that dumb generation that didn't know how to work a day in their lives. I mean, for openers, we train them, we teach them. We're just as responsible for them. I mean, and more importantly, when I was in my 20s, the people who were in their 50s, they were saying, "Oh my God, these kid, how are these people are gonna? These kids are gonna." They were talking in front of me about me, you know, because I was that 20-year-old that didn't know how to work a day in his life, you know. And here I am, and then here I hear people of my generation now bashing the university. The generation before us, and I always say like that.
That's right.
That's right. Kids, you know, just remember when it was us down there, you know. And that part is one of the most difficult ones, because you won't believe that as forward as we thought we were, my God, in our 50s, how obtuse sometimes some of these people are. Again, I know I do recognize, sadly, that what we have here in EAFab is a little bit of an anomaly. You know? But again, it is also a responsibility to push the concept forward. Some people will listen, some people won't. That's on them.
So Pedro, I'm going to ask you a hard question here.
Sure.
So right now you're very engaged, as is Claudia. Now Jess is coming up into the business.
Yeah.
How will you know that she's ready? How will you know that it's time for her to lead?
She's ready.
You think she's ready now?
Well, she's ready now. She's ready for where she's at.
Yes.
Right now, the experience comes with it, will make her ready. She's ready right now to the point where she's at right now. Now, in terms of the roles that she's going to be fulfilling, you know, if we want to say, well, how ready she is in order to fulfill the role of a head of engineering, absolutely 0%. Why? Because that's not her role. You know? In the terms of when is she ready? There will be two major milestones that it will have to be reached by the time that we that I don't think that it's about when she's ready, it's about when we are ready.
Okay.
You know, because that the first one is going to be when we are ready to not be here.
Yes.
You know, and that moment will come when maybe two potential things happen. One is because when we are being stop being relevant, the industry will let us know. Recognizing and accepting that is going to be one of the most difficult things. The day that we stop being relevant, my responsibility is to leave, even if there's nobody behind me. The day that we stop being relevant. And number two, in the moment that there is a moment in which we need to hand it over because either we don't want to be doing this all day long every year, I mean, I want to be 90 and be here, you know. There will be a time in which I would like to do something else, you know, I mean, God forbid, go play golf or do something like that. Yes, at that moment, I do need to convince myself that I have to, even if I don't think that she is completely ready, because are we ready one day? I don't even know if I'm ready for crying out loud. I continue, if every single year in this company, I continue to learn new things. So a problem that I didn't know like that. So I wasn't ready last year about what I was learning today. So how in the world am I going to be ready? I'm never ready.
That's a
I
fair
have
point.
never been ready. So the question here is that I am ready to understand that there is things that I need to be prepared for, that there is going to be unknowns that I'm going to have to approach in a certain way. That's the reason why when I was talking about the non-negotiables, if we understand that needs to be a real solution, because there is an implicit understanding that we're never ready. We are never ready to be able to say, okay, so that's that. No. I mean, this year, I mean, they asked me, can you please go ahead and create a project where you're going to be putting automation? Automation? Me? No. Years before I would have said no, because I don't do automation. This year I said yes. How are you going to do it? I don't know.
About to find out.
but we will, you know, and then it's.
Especially if there's a meeting coming up, because you got to come prepared, right? You got to have the answer.
With that thing. But at that moment,
I
I do have to jump into that thing. And then you know that there is. So there will be things that Jesse will never be ready, because that's the nature of it. You have to understand that there will be points that you will be challenged, and that's your relevance. The day that you feel like you're not going to be able to do this day, it's time for you to step down. That is the time when you need to do that, regardless if there is somebody that is ready or not. But at least you need to have the same. And that's the reason why the non-negotiables, they are not with the specific things. They are specific to real solutions, being honest, maintain your integrity, and be diligent. And make money. At the end, make money. Oh, and there's one last thing that is not negotiable. The logo needs to be pointing right.
Pointing forward.
Pointing forward. Okay. Always pointing forward.
Not to the left, to the right. Needs to be pointing.
All right. I'm sitting here.
So that's it. So that is the biggest thing. But the important thing for me is, yes, absolutely. I don't know when she's going to be ready. I know where I will force myself to know when I am not.
Yeah.
And that
was an incredibly powerful statement. I think probably the most powerful statement that you made on today's program is this idea of, when it's time, I need to have the self-awareness to know it's time and to step down. And that shows tremendous respect for what you've built in EAFab. You've put the company really ahead of your own self and saying, I can no longer serve this company. Somebody better has to come and step forward who is relevant and who can be relevant in the here and now. And that's incredibly powerful. So I thank you for sharing that point. I got like two more questions. I know we're running a little long, but I've really been enjoying this conversation. So this one I want to direct to Jesse. So we're going to cast out in the future, 20 years from now. What do you hope people will say about the Quiroga family's stewardship of EAFab? What do you think when you look out in the future? What do you hope people will say about the legacy that your folks established, the one that you're carrying forward into the future? What do you think they would say about that?
I hope that people will remember us as honest, kind, and hardworking people. I think that a lot of people have given us the feedback that we are very honest people. But I hope that we're able to do that in a kind way, and that people know that everything that we do is because we really, really care, and that we can show that care through our hard work. That is who we are as people. So luckily I was passed some of those things genetically. But I think that as a company, the legacy that we want to leave everyone who ever steps foot in this building, in our fabrication buildings, anyone who ever wears EAFab on their chest, we want them to not only exemplify those values, but really believe in them, and see that, as role models in their leadership, whether it's the original founders, whether it's the next generation, whatever that might be. That is something that we do really drill into everybody. But on a personal level, I can find myself being very hurt if I were able to compromise, or is compromise the right word? Yeah, compromise any of those qualities.
Nice.
Honesty definitely first, making sure I'm kind, and everyone knowing that we are very hard workers, that we really care about what we do here.
Engineers with a heart. I love it.
Yeah. And marketers.
And marketers. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, gosh, I feel like I could talk to the two of you all day, but I do have to start to wrap it up here. So last question, if any of our listeners wanted to learn more about the two of you or about the work you're doing at EAFab, just what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, the best way to find us, hello, marketing going here, is definitely our website. We're eafabcorp.com. We're very active on LinkedIn. We're always posting our news updates, things like that. So if you want to hear about kind of our new innovations or what we're up to as a company, a little bit about our internal picnics or our new case studies, we have it all on our LinkedIn. So awesome. LinkedIn, Facebook, and our websites will always be there.
And if anybody of your listeners ever needs to have a suggestion or would like to have an opinion from somebody that started their own business and they think that I might be able to help them out in any way, shape, or form, they have told me not to give my personal phone number, and I am not going to give it away, but I can tell you that I'll be more than happy to interact as many times as we need to with whoever they want.
We have a beautiful contact form on the website.
I would love to. I mean, I would have loved that when we started EAFab, I would have had a little bit more contact with other people that would have helped me, to steer certain things, or to maybe not have to go through certain bumps that we could have avoided, So I don't know if many of those bumps help us shape the way that we are, help us also do certain things, but it would have been nice to at least be prepared for one or two of those. So I don't know how much it can be of help, there is one thing that they can expect. It's going to be fairly simplistic, straightforward, and I hope that that's what they can be looking.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I'll add to that for any listeners who may have young people or students or in the greater Pittsburgh area,
please
check out EAFab and their program for shadowing and learning. That sounds like a really exciting program. So to wrap it up, what really stands out in this story today, Pedro and Jesse, is that the next generation doesn't necessarily have to walk exactly in the path and the footsteps as the one before.
No, not for me.
So, Pedro, you and Claudia have built EAFab around a vision for what an engineering and fabrication company could be and should be. And now here's Jessica, has an opportunity to bring her own experience, her own viewpoints, skills, and perspective to that wonderful foundation you've built. Perhaps one of the real advantages of a multi-generational business is that the goal is not simply to preserve what the previous generation built. It's really to give that next generation the opportunity to build on that foundation and to ultimately make it better. So Pedro, Jesse, thank you so much for sharing your story and perspectives. Again, we've been speaking with Pedro Quiroga and Jesse Quiroga of EAFab Corporation, and I'm your host, Ed Delia. And this has been another episode of Growing Up B2B. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Jess, Pedro, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into Growing Up B2B. To explore more episodes and insights, visit podcast.delianet.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Having worked with hundreds of family-led businesses across my career, and being a second-generation leader myself, I'm on a mission to help every family business I meet achieve next-level growth for their organization. So feel free also to connect with me on LinkedIn and let's support each other. You can also find out more about my company at delianet.com. Again, I'm your host, Ed Delia, and thanks so much for joining us today. Take care.